I'm going to try and do quickly here really is just present this idea of the 5,000 cancers in 5 continents and just give you a quick overview of where we are with this. And this will set the scene, I think, for the next session where we're really going to start talking about some of the results that we've been generating from this. And I think when CRUK came forward with this grand challenge idea and we started having discussions with Mike and others, and the challenge for us was to put together this epidemiological component, and we could have done something less ambitious, but we came up with this idea of 5,000 cancer patients for 5 cancer types across 5 continents, and this really was far more than anything that we'd ever attempted before. And when it was funded, we then had the challenge to actually try to deliver on this. And really, I guess our initial idea was, you call a friend and you try and kind of get people engaged. And we kind of went to a lot of the researchers and the collaborators that have worked with IARC over many decades, and many of you are here, and so many of these were active studies, or most of these, though, were new studies, but they were with people who we'd worked with a lot before. And in the end, we pretty much everybody that we contacted was very receptive to the participation. And we've ended up at the moment with 21 participating countries, and in many countries there are multiple centres, and I'll give a few more details on those. And I just wanted to spend a little moment talking through some of the challenges we faced. And one of the initial challenges, which has been quite a struggle, and it's been an amazing effort for many of the administrative people here and in each of the participating institutes, was really just the documentation, getting a contract with each institute, having a material transfer agreement with each institute, talking to the IRBs in each setting. And each of these often pose particular problems, and some institutes did fall away because of a block from one or other of these 3 sources. But I think there was a lot of dedication, and there was a lot of enthusiasm on everybody's part to try and make this work. And normally this did work, but it was just even this administrative component has been and continues to be really quite an important piece of work. And this is in place now for 34 of the 40 participating institutes, and for the other 6, we're confident that we'll be able to finalise them. And then once that was in place, we basically needed a protocol setting out what we were going to do, and the protocol had to be something that was usable in many different settings. It had to have enough detail, but not too much detail. It had to be simple, but not too simple. And so this piece of work was primarily led by Ghislaine Selot and Estelle and Benouche. And this protocol that many of you are aware, it's accessible to all, and we share this with outside groups as well if they desire. But it basically tries to give all the details of what the recruitment involves, with all the particular appendices, how one collects the tissue, how one stores the tissue, how one prepares the tissue, the questionnaires, etc. And so it's all here. The next part then was we had to really establish the infrastructure for the biosample storage and the data entry. And this, again, was something that was new for the project. And so we set up a SAMI for the biosamples, and there's Priscilla, who is dedicated to receiving the biosamples and for storing them and for shipping them onwards, and Helene for establishing the REDCap procedure for storing the questionnaire and the clinical data. And the next aspect then was this, again, another incredibly important part was what to do with the biological samples when they're received, the pathology review and the DNA extraction. So that there is this, one of the incredibly important people in the study is Christine, who basically deals with every single tumor sample, every single biopsy that we receive, and there is an established protocol for sectioning these samples before pathology review, and some of these are incredibly small biopsies and require incredibly detailed and precise work. And then subsequently there is a team of pathologists led by Benouche who review each of these. So we set up a system whereby these slides can be reviewed remotely. There is a poster on this where the role of the individual pathologist is displayed. But this again is people who are working, pretty much given their own time, with an awful lot of generosity. So this is not funded work, it's just part of the participation in the Mutograph project. And then there's a protocol for selecting cases and moving them through the workflow. And so this will involve decisions made on the cases as they go through the pathology review. Is the histology confirmed? Is the tumor content confirmed? Is the DNA quality there when the DNA is extracted? Do we have all of the background information on the cases? And once the cases go through all of these phases, then they're selected for sequencing. And then the data is put in place and that is shared. There's data shared when we ship samples to the Sanger. There's additional data shared when the samples go on the train. And then there's further more detailed sets of data which will be available for hypothesis-specific analyses. So we actually planned not for 5,000 cases, but we assumed that there would be a fallout rate of about 20% of cases. And Estelle has a poster that you can look at where that's not too far away. I think our dropout rate has been in the low 20%. So we plan to need about 6,200 cases, and we're about halfway there. And the cases really have come from all over the world. We have had this initial strong focus on esophageal cancer. So there's about 1,300 cases that have been received here with tumor and a source of germline DNA, but we're starting to get substantial numbers of cases for renal. Colorectal is increasing rapidly, as well as pancreatic and esophageal adenocarcinoma. So just to give an idea of some of the specific contributions by continent, so there's a large and important contribution from different partners in Asia. There is an important contribution from Iran. We anticipate that maybe between 15 and 20% of the total source of cases for Mutograph may come from Iran, covering 4 of the 5 cancer types, with a specific focus on esophageal, both adenocarcinoma and squamous cell carcinoma. There's an important contribution from the National Cancer Center in Tokyo, led by Tatsuhiro Shibata. There is specifically for esophageal cancer, because we wanted to capture esophageal cancer in China, and this comes from our collaboration with the NCI that did an important study in a very high-risk region of China. And then, just trying to capture some of the low-risk regions as well. We have an important contribution and participation from colleagues in Thailand, from the National Cancer Institute, but also from two other cancer centers in north and southern Thailand, with really an important focus here on colorectal cancer, because this is a low-risk region for colorectal cancer. Another part of the world which is contributing a lot of cases is South America. So there's participation from the National Cancer Center in Colombia. There's important collaborations from 4 centers in Brazil, listed here, covering all 5 cancer types. And the most recent contribution is from the Italian hospital in Buenos Aires with Dr. Vaccaro. And this is something that actually came about from the CRUK meeting last January, with the optimistic study which was presented there, which has a focus on colorectal cancer. And so we thought that this was a nice opportunity for the 2 Grand Challenge projects to link up. And since then, we've been able to initiate this new collaboration in Buenos Aires. And this is particularly interesting because colorectal cancer is increasing importantly in this part of the world. It's part of the world that has some of the highest consumption of red meat. And so this is one of the specific areas that we hope to be able to look at with the colorectal cancers from this part of the world. From North America, we have established some important collaborations in Toronto and also in Montreal, covering all 5 of the cancer types. And from Africa as well, there's a very important collaboration that we've been able to link up with. There's this study in East Africa called the ESCAPE study, which is investigating environmental causes of esophageal cancer, currently in Tanzania, Malawi, and Kenya, with an additional study led by Iqbal Parker in Cape Town. And it's really trying to understand, and this has been led by, the IARC component of this has been led by Val McCormack, and this is really trying to understand why there is this high risk of esophageal cancer in this part of the world, and are the risk factors shared with other parts of the world, such as in Iran and in China. And in Europe, again, there are important collaborations, and we'll hear some more from some of these, but from the UK, we have some of the leading groups for renal cancer in Leeds, from esophageal cancer with Rebecca Fitzgerald in Cambridge, and also a new collaboration that we're just establishing for pancreatic cancer with Andrew Bianchi in Glasgow. And there is, apart from this, there is a strong focus on cancers in Central Europe. And this is because in Central Europe, one does find some of the highest cancer rates for many different cancers that one sees in the world. So particularly for colorectal cancer, for kidney cancer in Czech Republic, for pancreatic cancer as well. One sees this cluster of these incredibly high cancer rates that we don't understand. And so we have established these contacts in this region over a number of years, and we continue to work with them. And in Romania as well, there is this story of the aristolochic acid exposure in signature 22 that we've previously seen for renal cancer. And so one of the aims of the Mutograph really is to dig into this in more detail and trying to understand that further. So our initial scientific priority is on esophageal cancer. We have this initial focus on these high-risk regions, trying to get cases from these high-risk regions. We have up to now received about 1,300 cases that have come to the agency that we're dealing with regards to, we're processing the tumour samples. And at the moment, of those 1,300, about 600 have gone through all of our processes, so the histology has been confirmed, the tumour content has been confirmed, we've extracted the DNA, we have the information on the environmental risk, the primary environmental risk factors on all of these cases. And so those 600 cases now have been shipped to the Sanger Institute, and the sequencing platform has been completed on about half of those, and we're going to be seeing those results in the next session. I mean, esophageal cancer is incredibly difficult because the biopsies tend to be very small. They're often collected under very challenging conditions, especially in parts of Africa, etc. And so there is quite a high dropout rate from the esophageal cancers, which is one of the reasons why we need to get far more than the 20% dropout that we expect overall. But that really is one area that thanks to our colleagues and our partners, has really progressed really well up to now. The next priority that we envisage is for renal cancer. So there's 11 countries participating in this aspect of the work, and we're trying to delve into this story of why renal cancer differs so much, even in quite small areas. So in Europe, there's a 3- to 4-fold difference in incidence with this cluster in Central Europe. And as you go away from Central Europe, the incidence rates drop. The risk factors don't drop, so it's very unclear why the UK, for example, has quite a substantially lower rate than somewhere like Czech Republic, because the main risk factors like smoking and obesity and hypertension are very similar. So that's one of the main focuses of the work on renal cancer, which will be our second priority. And we're open to new initiatives, and we have been discussing, trying to at least provide some small amounts of data on new initiatives as they come along. And we have 2 initial studies where we're trying to grab small numbers of cases, just to see if we can provide some initial data that might give us some background to some of these quite strange epidemiological trends that one sees. One is gallbladder cancer in India, where one sees amazing differences between the northeast of the country and other parts of the country, which is completely unexplained. So gallbladder cancer is one of those cancers where you really see these peaks in incidence in parts of the world. Chile would be another one, where we really, environmentally, we really cannot understand this. And another one is bladder cancer in the east of the country, which is known to have a very high incidence. There is some cancer registry data from the east of the country, close to Afghanistan, which shows this to be one of the most important cancers in the region. We think it might be due to opium consumption. There is some good epidemiological data that opium is driving the high incidence in bladder cancer in this region, and it could be an important carcinogen for numerous other cancers. So we're hoping, again, with our colleagues in Iran, to initiate this new collection to provide some initial data for bladder cancer and opium. So there's just a few more details on those slides here. So we're aiming to try and bring in 100 cases for gallbladder cancer. This is a collaboration with Tata Memorial Center in Mumbai. And this is a little bit more information on the bladder cancer initiative. So we're trying to get 10 cases of bladder cancer who have been using opium and 10 cases of bladder cancer who have not been using opium. And we'll be trying to focus on those 20 cases and see if we see differences in mutation signatures between those 20 cases. Now, this will be an initial pilot before we consider what to do next. So I just want to, my apologies if I've missed some names on this slide here, but I want to emphasize that this has been an enormous effort from many different people across the world. It has, that it's benefited an awful lot within the Mutographs study, with our discussions within the, with the PIs, with the patient advocates as well. There's been an awful lot of discussions with people in IARC and others at the Sanger Institute. I think within IARC as well, I think I've sometimes pushed the limits of what can be done with some people, and I think there's been an immense kind of team effort to try and bring this forward, and it's quite humbling to see the commitment of many of the colleagues in the agency who have really contributed to make this work. And of course, all of the colleagues from all of the contributing institutes. I mean, I can't list you here, but many of you are here, and it's a pleasure to see you all here, and it's a pleasure to see the commitment that you have to make this work as well. And finally, I'd just like to thank CRUK for having the idea of the Grand Challenge and having the belief in this study, because of course none of this would have happened without you. So I'm going to stop there, and there's more information on this website, and thanks very much.